Hello everyone, my name is Noah, and today we're going to be talking about the cotangent graph. The cotangent graph is very interesting as it can be applied in a wide range of subjects such as music and engineering. The cotangent graph can be expressed as y equals cotangent x. Using our basic skills of trigonometry, we know that the cotangent is actually the reciprocal of tan. Therefore, y equals 1 over tan x. Using our quotient rules, we can derive that y equals cosine x over sine x. This will be very useful in determining a table of values in certain points on the graph. So although all these equations look very different, they all represent the exact same thing. Before we create our graph, we must use a table of values to determine the y values. We're going to start with our x values at 0 radians and increase by an interval of pi over 4 radians. Since there is no cotangent function on our calculator, we must use one of the two equations that we derived that equal cotangent x. I'm going to use y equals cosine x over sine x. Let's start with our x value at 0. I know that our cos value of 0 is 1, and I know that the sine value of 0 is 0. Since 0 can never be divided by 1, that means that there will be an asymptote at this place. An asymptote is a part of the graph where the line of the graph can approach but never touch or cross. Let's move on to the next one. The next x value is pi over 4 radians. I know that the cosine of pi over 4 is 1, and I know that the sine of pi over 4 is also 1. Since 1 goes into 1 one time, the cotangent of pi over 4 radians will equal 1. Let's move on to the next value. Our next value is pi over 2. Since the cos of pi over 2 is 0, and the sine of pi over 2 is 1, this value will be 0. So the cotangent of pi over 2 is 0. See if you can try the next two values on your own. If you got the y value negative 1 for the x value 3 pi over 2, and no solution for the x value of pi, then you're correct. Now that we've completed our table of values, we can finally start to sketch our graph. Let's start with our x value at 0. Since there is no solution at x equals 0, we draw an asymptote. An asymptote is a dashed line along the x value of this line. Our next value is pi over 4. Since the cotangent of pi over 4 equals 1, we can draw a 1 at the x value. Next is pi over 2. The cotangent of pi over 2 is 0. And the cotangent of 3 pi over 4 is negative 1. So let's draw a negative 1 on the y values. When we come to pi, we run into another asymptote. So we can draw another dashed line along all the y values that x would encounter. This is what your graph should look like with all the points connected. You can see that although this graph approaches the asymptote, it will never touch it since there is no solution at that x value. Now that we've graphed our function, we can determine the domain and the range. The domain is any value that the x can take on. In this case, the domain of the cotangent graph is x can equal any real number except any multiple of pi. And this any multiple of pi can be of any integer. The multiples of pi are the asymptotes, and since they cannot approach the asymptotes on the graph, it must be stated in the domain. The range of the function is y can equal all real numbers, since there are no limitations horizontally, or no horizontal asymptotes. Now that we've sketched our graph, we can find the period and the amplitude of our graph. The period can be defined as how long it takes the graph to complete one cycle. In this case, it takes pi radians to complete one cycle because it takes the distance of pi to go from one asymptote to the other. You can do this with any 2 points on the graph as long as they're in the same y value. We can also attempt to find the amplitude of the graph. The amplitude is defined as the maximum point on the graph minus the minimum point on the graph divided by 2. However, there is no maximum or minimum point on this graph because it approaches positive and negative infinity. Therefore, there is no amplitude of the cotangent graph.
Thank you for watching our video on the cotangent graph. We hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot.
Hey Beth, why do people who sit on cots get sunburned?
Why?
Because if one is on a cot, then they'll surely get tanned. Thank you.